Hanley, and I'm not a stand-up comedian, as you probably can tell. I work in television, I work behind the scenes, I'm a cameraman, an editor, producer, that sort of thing. But I'm a Zimbabwean, so you know, like that's why I'm here. I wanted to come and see you, just to say how. And it's lovely to be in Zimbabwe. I love being in Zimbabwe because things don't really work that well. And I think maybe that's why you might like this show, because it might not work well either. You know? It's called Off Script, the show, and basically I'm just standing up here talking cup for a certain amount of time. Is that okay? You don't mind if I talk cup? Yeah, so I was born in about 1967. I have to say that I also used to do disco, so I brought along with me a couple of things that, you know, help me tell the story. So that was 1967 when I was born, and I have three older brothers, and they basically said to my mother that she had given birth to a 7-pound nose. That's not very nice, is it? But that's the sort of brothers I got. The oldest one is a guy called Ant. You would love him, except he's dead now, so you won't really like him now. But he was the naughtiest of the bunch. He drove his car into a swimming pool. He set the house on fire twice. And it's just the sort of thing he used to do. He used to get firecrackers and stick them in my mother's cigarette, so she'd be smoking away. But blow up her face. And then he was obviously on a thing about these firecrackers, so he got a whole bunch of them, and he tied them together and he shoved them down the chimney on the domestic quarters where the ants were cooking their sadza and yama. These ants came out with sadza all sticking on them. It wasn't very nice. Then the next book was a guy called Rich, and Rich was a headmaster, and he had a great sense of humor, but very different to Ant. His humor was more sophisticated. You know, for example, he called his dog a Regina. So he'd go into his garden, flat into the garden, and he'd shout, "Regina! Regina!" And all the neighbors were thinking, "Hey, is that what am I hearing?" He'd say, "I've got the sausagery," you know, that sort of thing. So his humor was a bit different. And then Paul and I came along, and we were kind of naughty as a team. We were about 18 months apart, and I remember we got a bolt and a nut, and we got some of the old man's matches, and we shaved it all off, and we stuck it in the bolt. Try this at home, kids, if you like. And then you get another bolt, and you stick it on top like that, and then you throw them, and with a bit of luck, they bang like mad. So these little things go off, and sorry, I've got cameras going on as well, and things going on, so I fiddle around a lot of the time. But anyway, so Paul came home one day with a nut and bolt that I'm telling you he must have got from the railways, because it was absolutely huge. And we nicked all the old man's matches, because he used to smoke a pipe, so he used to go through loads of matches, so he had cartons of matches. And we spent about 2 hours doing the shavings, sticking them into this nut. A bit of the outside of the box, stick it in there, and we bought with the nut nicely. And then we threw it. Nothing happened. So we stuck it in the vise, we got a hammer, we clapped it. Nothing. So then we put it on the tarmac and we banged it with a 14-pound hammer. Still nothing. So then we took it to the dear old staff quarters again. And we buried it in the ground like that. We got the two of us, picked up this big rock, we went over, we dropped the rock, to the bolt, and boom! Off the thing went. The windows went like this, and the old man was having a DOS. Sunday afternoon he woke up, came running around, see what's going on, and of course, not like today. Those days we got beaten on the arse, with a nice, he had like a sergeant major's cane. 2 of those, and no more explosions for us. So that's the sort of shit we got up to, and I have a few notes here that I like to look at every now and again. My brother says to me, I put on about 25 kgs in the last 25 years. He says to me, "You're not fat, you're 2 lunches ahead and 4 poos behind." So I did what I'm going to do. I don't normally do jokes, but I think you guys might need to warm up a bit because it's obviously not hot enough. So this is a joke that somebody told me years ago. But the guy goes off to the doctor and he's got this terrible problem, gaseous problem. So he says, "Excuse me 1 sec, I'll be back. Ladies. Anyway, so the doctor, the doctor, this guy goes off to see the doctor, that's right, yeah. So he's got this problem with gas. You know, he keeps on, everywhere he goes up. He keeps on dropping one, you know. And he goes off to the doctor's room and he sees the receptionist. And he's just letting it go all the time. And the receptionist says, you better go in and see the doctor. You know? So he goes to the doctor and he's going like this. The doctor says, look, you better get up on the bench, I'm going to have a look at you. So if you wouldn't mind getting up on your hands and your knees. So he takes off his kit and he's on the bench like this. And he looks around and he sees the doctor, and the doctor's got this long pole with a hook on it. And he says to the doctor, oh my God, what are you going to do with that? He says, I'm just going to open the window. Yeah, there's the laugh. That's where we want. Yeah. So now, going back to my brothers, yeah, I suppose I could play a little tune or two. In the days of being brought up in Zim, you know, there's certain things that remind me of times that have gone by. Like, for example, this one. Like, there are certain things in our culture that we just don't forget about. That's definitely the one of them. Here's another. You remember all these hands? No. Yes, we do. Yes, yeah, so those are the 80s. Living in the 80s was great fun because, you know, things used to just get on, work and stuff. So in the 80s, I suppose, what was I up to? I was probably making a ring of myself one way or another. I guess it was the time when I had 3 girlfriends, which is not very clever, but let me tell you the story. So I was going out with a girl called Heather. She was lovely. She had kind of big hairdo and stuff, and you know, we were about 17 or something like that. And then she decided that she would take on one of those exchange student things and she'd go over to Ohio. So we didn't break up. We just sort of said, okay, well, we'll be pen pals and we'll keep the relationship going. And off she went to the United States. But after about 2 or 3 months, I thought, well, I met another girl actually. Her name was Nicole. And Nicole was a lovely girl. She was a ginger girl, and off she went to Rhodes University. So that was about January. So I said the same thing to her. I said, look, don't worry. We'll stay in touch, we'll write, and it'll be fine. So off she went to Rhodes, and then I met Belinda. Belinda used to work for the Automobile Association, and she had a lovely boss called Liz. And in those days I was working in real estate, and it was like my first year at work really. And Liz said to me, I have a property that you can sell for me. So I thought, that's lovely, absolutely, commission, I'm in. She said, but the snag is we have to go and meet my lawyer so that he can make sure the paperwork is all in order. So I said, that's no problem. So we went off to Condi, Chadwick and Elliott in Gordon Avenue in Harare, you know. And I went and sat in the reception there with Liz waiting for her lawyer. And the next thing you know, Nicole's dad walked in. He was the lawyer. So he says, oh, hello Steve, how are you doing? And Liz says, oh, you know Steve? How do you know Steve? Oh, he's going out with my daughter. So Liz was like, I thought he was going out with my secretary kind of thing. She didn't say anything, she just kept quiet. I thought, phew. So I go into the office, the lawyer's office now, I'm sweating. And he says, would you guys like a cup of tea? I was like, oh, I just like a whiskey to be fair, but a cup of tea will do. So he pushes a button on his phone and he says to his secretary, you know, cups of tea coming in. And next thing you know, she walks in and blow me down. It was Heather's mother. She says, oh, hello Stephen. And both Liz and Mr. Hartley turn around and say, oh, you know Stephen, yes, he's going out with my daughter. It's embarrassing, eh? So I go back to the office and the phone is ringing. It's Belinda saying, oh, apparently you got 2 other girlfriends. But hey, I told her, so all is fair. But embarrassing moments are easy to come by. I mean, I work in television most of the time. I'm behind the camera, rather like your friend here, Alan. And I mean, the one thing I did, we had the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting here in, I don't know, 1989 or 88 or something like that. And I was tasked with being the pool camera. The pool camera means that ITV, BBC, and all of those Sky guys, they all get together and they say, well, we're not going to have you all in the room at the same time. One guy can do all of the shots in that room, and one guy will do that, and then afterwards we put all the material together, and everybody's happy. So I was like, fine, I'm doing it for the BBC, great. So I set up on a bit of a platform, and I'm filming, the Queen is going to come through the entrance. So sure enough, I hit the record button, and I see the Queen walking in. And the next thing you know, this bald head pops up into my shot, and it's some guy from India, and he's filming a documentary, and he's just running around and standing in front of my camera. And I was like, you need to get out of the way. But as I did that, I hit the record button again, so I stopped recording. So he goes off, and I busy follow the Queen like this. Oh, that's a beautiful shot. And then I realized, oh shit, I'm not recording. So as she walks out the door, I push the record button a bit. So that's my shot that went on the BBC is about 2.5 seconds of the Queen walking in, and another 2.5 seconds of the Queen walking out. Yeah, no, I'm afraid embarrassing moments, I have plenty of them. But I used to work in the theatre quite a bit. I used to belong to the Rex Theatre in Harare, and I've got all these little phones going on. I've lost one actually. Never mind. That camera should be recording, but anyway, yeah. So I used to belong to Rex Theatre, and I would be doing this comedy stuff in Ireland, but to be honest with you, they don't believe you when you talk about Rex Theatre. They have no idea what you're talking about. So that's why I'm doing it here, to use Zumbos, because I think you could relate to some of these stories. But yeah, in Rex Theatre, the fun and games that we used to have, are endless. When you're working on a stage like this, you don't actually know what's going to go wrong and what's going to go right. But on this occasion, the first time I worked backstage at Rex, and actually, Alan, you could give me a hand here because I wouldn't mind a bit of a blackout. Because what happens is, when you work backstage, you sort of lurk in the wings, and then the scene goes on, with all the lights on and that stuff. And then when there's a blackout, you come on and you change the scene around and nobody sees you, you're wearing black. So I had to come on and take away 3 little props and then walk out with that prop. In fact, I only took one off, and then 2 of my mates would come on and they'd take one each and one each. So the 3 of us would rush on in the blackout and take these props off, rather like now. So here's a blackout. So I would rush on and I would grab my prop and then I would rush off again, and then the lights would come back on again, and the scene has changed. But on this one occasion, I decided that during the blackout, I would rush on, and I'd grab my mate's props, and I'd grab the other mate's props, and then I'd grab my props, all in the dark, and then disappear. And like that. I think that's okay. So you can put the lights off again if you like. And then when the lights came back on again, my mates were like this on the floor, looking for the props that they're supposed to take off. And that's what I love about it, I love that element in live television and in live theatre and stuff like that. You don't really know what's going to go wrong. We did a show called My Private Parts. Did you see My Private Parts? Yeah? No, nobody's seen My Private Parts. Well, that's what the show was called, and it was Dave Stobie. I'm sure you guys remember. Dave came out here a few months ago. In fact, Dave's the reason why I'm here tonight, because he said, you know what, those guys, they actually enjoy a bit of humour and stuff, so go ahead and do it. So I'd like to say thanks to Dave, you bastard. While you're clapping hands, I think that you might as well put your hands together for Ricky and Alan as well, because this is a remarkable it's really cool. Yeah, Oaks, thanks. Yeah, any excuse to have a dog, to be fair. Yeah, Ricky and Alan, cheers, Alan. Anyway, I was going to tell you another story. I was in this show at Rex Theatre, and it was called The Word of the Flesh, and it's a very serious show. It's about it's a passion play about Easter, and I have this friend Fraser Mackay, who's one of those naughty Zimbabweans that whenever there's some skullduggery or some naughtiness going on, Fraser is involved, So we did the show at Rex, and there were 12 disciples in this scene. And Jesus would come on, onto the stage, and he'd look at the disciples and say, oh, he's had a busy day, and he's been healing people and doing stuff. And then on a Friday night, Fraser would go up to the wardrobe, and he would just nick an apostle's outfit, a disciple's outfit. And he would come onto the stage, during that dark patch before the lights come on. Suddenly there's 13 disciples. So Jesus would walk on and suddenly he's going, who's this guy, lose his lines and cock up the play. And that, the whole thing is called corpsing. And I get a kick out of that. I just love it when you see the other actors screaming, I've lost my words. So this show, The Word in the Flesh, was great fun. But the other one I did was about a bunch of paratroopers that were in the desert. And the idea was that they found a play and they put it on in the desert. But there were no women in the desert, there were no women paratroopers. So the play that they put on was called Sailor Beware, about a husband and wife who basically have a fallout before their wedding. And so the parts had to be played by men, all of them. And I got the part of being the bride. And they used to do the little scene with the cameo lighting where the lights come up on stage and then they go down again and then they come up over here and you each do your bit, you say your lines and then off it goes to the other scene. So I was sitting with this really big guy, he was my bride, my groom rather, and his name is Neil McPherson. And he's about 6'4" by 2 foot, and he was sitting right next to me. In fact, I was sitting on his knee, if I remember correctly. And as the lights went down on the other scene, they would come up on us and I would say my lines and he says his lines, and then the lights go down again and they go up on the other guys. And just as the lights were about to come up on me and Neil, I turned to Neil and I said, I'm not wearing any knickers. Yeah, lovely poor old Neil was like, speechless. No, that's true. Okay, so let me come down here and see some of you guys. Does this work? Steps. The steps work. So what's your name? Tyrone. Is it County Tyrone? County Tyrone, you've never heard of it? No. You better get to Ireland, dude. H. Let's go over here, check what's going on here. Anyone giving us cup? Oh yeah. Hello. Kiri, why are we choosing you? What's the story? Oh my God, Kiri! What are you doing quick? You live here. She's taken. So you are here. Lovely to see you, Kiri. Hey, nice to see you. Love to Debbie, eh? This is why I do the show. What about you, Oaks? Oh, here's a lady that's promised me to give somebody some abuse. It's not nice to make big men cry. That's not what you said to me before the show started. Dogs, yeah. There's not enough drinking going on. Is that a fact? Right, fair enough. I don't know, this oak's having a big dog. That's a family-sized bottle you got there. Yeah. Why are you drinking family-sized beer? Your family, man. And could you tell me exactly what does this sign on your table say? It's reserved. Is that how it is? Reserved. Are you guys all awake over here? Is it? All good? Yeah, this one doesn't talk, he just talks. In one of those, yeah. I know what happens with jokes like this, they get really doped and then they do karaoke. Are you up for it? Oh, yeah. Look, it's lovely to meet all you folks, and I hope you are having a look. Alan is timing me, by the way. I don't know how long I have to go on for, but I do go on and on and on and on and on. So, now going back to my little reminder of the good old days. Here's does that mean anything to anybody? Come on, that is a good buddy of ours. A good buddy. But Kirkhoff, here's another one. They don't even know where you go. They don't ever know where you go. That's why they call you the show. Yeah, that's good. that. But I was saying to you earlier that, you know, when I went to Ireland, people just don't believe me. And I was telling a mate here yesterday, I met a guy called Stephen and Pat. And Stephen was telling me that he had an Irishman come and play golf here in Kwekwe. Yeah, you do. And so anyway, they had a nice round of golf, and as they were walking around, they saw a bullfrog. So your man from Ireland goes up and he checks out the bullfrog like this, and the bullfrog, of course, jabbered his finger. So he goes back to Ireland with his finger all plastered up like this, and he gets back and he tells, you know, the oaks in the pub, you know, they ask him what happened to him, and he says, I got bitten by a frog. Well, nobody believes that, like he got bitten by a frog. It's nonsense, you know. My mate Graham, he comes over to London and we go out and we have a few beers at an Indian restaurant and we have a few glasses of wine in a pub, and then we went to a nightclub. This is in Wimbledon. And as we go in, we meet a whole lot of young ladies and we start chatting to them, and they said they were from Zimbabwe. So we said, well, we're from Zimbabwe. And they said, no, you guys are not from Zimbabwe, definitely not. I said, no, definitely. I said, what about, I was at Churchill School, and I went to Greendale, I lived in Greendale, and the Red Fox, and I told her all these things that I thought would make them click that I'm definitely a Zimbo. But no, they didn't believe us. But then a little later on in the evening, I'm sitting, still chatting to the same chicks, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's the bouncer. And he says to me, I've ordered you a taxi, and it's at the door. And I said, well, why? I don't need a taxi. He says, no, you do. Look at your mates. And I turned around and there's Graham on the dance floor. And he's like this. Just like a football. So the girls that look at us and they said, oh, you are Zimbabweans. Yeah. It's just the way it goes, isn't it? You don't believe us, but actually we are. I live in Northern Ireland, in County Dromore, and to be honest with you, it's absolutely beautiful. It's green and it's all undulating, and I look out of my bedroom window, I can see the Mourne Mountains. It is stunning, but they do have some funny names there. They've got a place called Termin Fecken. Now, Fecken, they say feck all the time. They don't say the F word like we do. It's feck, and they even say it on the radio. You could be driving to work in the morning and this guy saying, the Fecken weather's terrible, and the fact this and fact that. It's quite acceptable. But then they've got a place called Termin Fecken, which I think is a scream. And then there's another place called Lower Bollocks. Have you ever been to Lower Bollocks? See all the old ducks in the front they have. And Upper Bollocks? But this is genuine. There is a town called Muff, right? And it is right next to Londonderry, or Derry. They all, you know, the Protestants and Catholics have the same, they have different names for the same town. So that place is, some of them call it Derry, that would be the Catholic side of the community. And Londonderry would be the Protestant side of the community, you know? So we call it Stroke City, because no one can make up their mind. But right next to Stroke City is Muff, and if you go to Muff, it's right on the coast, and they have a diving school, and there's a big sign there that says Muff Diving School, you know? Yeah, and not far down the road is the Muff Liquor Store, which is even worse. I remember when I used to work for a company here called Mighty Movies, and we got really bored one day, and we were sitting around trying to make up names for each other, you know, like rude names. And of course, my name being Hanley, they came up with the idea of hand job. And for 25 years, no one's called me hand job. And the other day, I went to a boxing match in Belfast, and I was working at it. And I walked up, and there were a whole lot of other crew there, but the one oak was from Zim. And he turns around, and as I said, how's it doing? He says, oh, hand job, hi, how you doing? So now, for the last 4 months, everybody in Ireland's been calling me hand job, which is not really appropriate, is it? But that same little session where they came up with that name, there was a girl there called Nikki Venables, and we came up with the name of Sticky Genitals. It's just not fair, is it? But I mean, you live here in Kwekwe. You know, that's a kind of strange name. You know, my brother used to farm in down the road here in Hartley, as it used to be called. And he and I were years ago driving to Hartley and discussing exactly what the new name was, because we didn't really understand what it was. It was Che Kutu, or was it Che Kutu, or Shag Yutu. We just didn't know. But we were debating it on the way there. And I said to him, okay, well, we'll put it to the garage here to get some fuel, and I'll ask the guy exactly how to pronounce the name. So, sure enough, we drive into the garage, and the guy comes over, and I give him some money, and I said to him, excuse me, but would you mind very slowly and clearly telling us exactly what this place is called? So he leaned into the window and he said, Caltex. That same farm, I did some filming here in the 90s. I used to be part of a thing called Joy TV, and we used to broadcast 5 hours every night, and we made some programming ourselves, and some of that programming was a cooking show called Taste the Wild with a presenter called Dave Seward. And we've done quite a few shows, and I was kind of running out of ideas. We've been on the Zambezi, we've been in the Lowveld, we've been in the Eastern Highlands, all over the place. So I decided, well, we're going to shoot one of these programs on my brother's farm, So we arrived there and quickly discussed with him what we're going to film. And I said to him, is it okay if we film in the chicken run? And he said, yeah, there's a manager there who you can interview. So he was setting me up, I didn't know it at the time. So he said, the manager's name is Chikukumera. So fair enough, we go into the chicken run and we start filming. We didn't do much chat beforehand. And we're filming this guy, and David starts the intro, and then he asks the guy a question. So tell us a bit about your chickens, And the guy says, he had this terrible stutter, which wouldn't be really appropriate to be filming him as an interview. But I didn't know that actually Chikukumera means stutter in Shona, So it plays, talking of Shona, when we were at school, the only way we learned Shona was actually our French teacher, a guy called Laresh. He used to come into the classroom. He'd put these, those old reel-to-reel tapes. He'd put on a tape of our Shona lesson. And this is kind of how it went.
The greeting is as follows. Mabwanani.
So that's how we learned Shona, honestly, by listening to this tape. Now, that's probably the only Shona I learned, actually. And I was in Belfast and walking into one of the studios, and there was a white guy next to me talking to a black guy. The black guy was saying, oh no, back home we talk Shona. And I heard this in the middle of the street, and I just couldn't resist. I turned around and said, Mangwani! And he looked at me like I was from outer space. Off he went. But really, I should have pursued the old Shona lessons a bit further, because this would have been much more appropriate.
The greeting is as follows. Mangwani.
Well, now and again, I do push the wrong button, to be fair.
Give me a beer.
Essential Shona, isn't it? Yes. Right now, I probably wouldn't mind a volunteer. I guess it's going to have to be Kerry. Come on, Kerry. Yeah, big round of applause. How's Gary, by the way? Oh, Chris. Gary, I've got some stories about Gary. I should tell stories about Gary. Okay, so this is a story about my mate Grant. And Grant is one of those guys that influences all his friends all the time. So at one stage, actually just last week, I'm staying with him in Aurora. He says, come, will you come to Pilates class? I said, not a chance. He's that kind of oak. So he says to me, come, we're going to do triathlons, not a chance. But on this occasion, he said, come and do karate. And stupidly, I joined him in the karate class. And I absolutely hated it, because they gave everyone a nice little cotton outfit, but I had a canvas outfit. And it used to make like a hell of a noise, every time I flicked my arm. So I gave up the karate and said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to give up. And then after 6 weeks, he said, look, it's the grading tomorrow. So why don't you come along to the grading, and then at least you can get your pig belt, That's the first belt you get. So I said, no, I haven't been to the lessons. So unless you teach me, tonight, you come along and teach me at home, and then I'll come to the grading. So sure enough, he came that evening and he taught me all the moves. And the next day we did the grading, and I was top of the class. It's absolutely top of the class. So now I'm going to teach you a little bit. So the first thing you have to do is, can you do a backflip? No, it's quite easy. So over here, I don't know if you remember those days where you have the old karate movies were dubbed, right? So they'd film the thing and then they'd put the sound on afterwards. That's your task this evening. So over here you've got these little sound effects. So if you whack those two, now you need to watch me very carefully. We're going to have a little practice first. Okay. So, no, well, maybe a first. Ah, very good. And a bit of a so. Excellent. Right. Here we go. My grandfather. He taught me everything I know. Everybody was keep going the other way. Everybody was thank you. Give it a round of applause, baby. There was another button here which luckily you didn't push. That does come up in Kung Fu every now and again. I think I've lost my microphone. How are we doing on timing, Alan? He's forgotten. He didn't time anything.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, so in Northern Ireland, the culture is completely different. For me, it's a bit of a shock. You know, when I first got there, I had to go and film some stuff like this. This is March 12th of July. Every year, they all get together, and the Protestants march through all the Catholic areas, and they throw petrol bombs at each other. It's a lot of fun. It's great fun. But I have to go and film this stuff, right? So I go off to film it, and they don't tell me that you're not allowed to walk in front of the band. They didn't tell me that. You know the oak that throws the mace around? So I walk in front of the band filming them. Next thing you know, this mace starts whacking me over the head, on the back, whacking. Welcome to Northern Ireland. Jeez. I went and filmed, there was a burnt out car that had some sort of riot the night before. And they sent me along to go and film this area that they were cleaning up. And I got there and I set up the camera on the side of the street, busy filming away. Next thing you know, this car mounted the pavement and came straight towards me. And I thought, geez, this is serious. It's like joyriders or something. So I ran out the way, and the car went whizzing past. And then it turned around and it came back towards me again. So I went behind the lamppost, just thinking that I'm going to crash into the lamppost. But they came right up and then they went past me again. And I thought, okay, they're obviously after me. I'm going to duck. So I go and jump into my car quickly, and they brought their car and cut me off. And it was quite aggressive, you know. I was quite scared. And they came up to the windows, and I wound down my window a little bit. And I said, I'm from Zimbabwe. And they were like, oh, okay, off you go. It works, you know. Just use your accent wherever you can. Oh, man. So anyway, yeah. I don't know if I've got any, anything else I can tell you that's particularly funny. Oh yes, okay, here we go. So my brother got married, Paul got married, and I was his best man. And the brothers, we were always, always up to some kind of mischief. And this time, at that time, we used to pull each other's shorts down. Just, you're busy getting a couple of dogs as you're walking along, somebody whips your shorts down, and it's awfully embarrassing. But on my brother's wedding day, we went to the Jameson Hotel, and as we walked in, we saw a mate of ours checking in at reception. And we knew it was him because he was about 6'4" by 4 foot, and we used to call him Tank. And Tank was checking in at the reception. So as we walked in, I said to my boy, watch this. And I ran up to Tank and I whipped his shorts down and I stood like this to look at him. And it turned out it was some American tourist. He was like, oh my God, what's going on? The brothers were absolutely thrilled with that one, I'm telling you. But yeah, embarrassing moments how it was. And then I did a show at Reb's Theatre called A Country Wife, right? And the part I played was quite camp and had involved a lot of laughing. So I was like this all the time, you know. In those days you could do that sort of thing. You could be camp on stage and carry it off. But a lot of people thought I was gay after that for years. But I did that show and it was a Friday night and a mate of mine came in and he just got engaged. And I was having a couple of beers after the show. In fact, I was playing chess. I played 2 games of chess and I won them both, by the way. And I had 2 beers, so I was pretty sober. But Gary came in and he just got engaged and he was really on top of the moon and I had just got engaged, so all was good. So we had a beer together and he said, come on, let's go to town. We're going to Turtle's nightclub. So I said, yeah, all right. So we sent the fiancés home in one car, and then Gary came with me in my car, you know. And we went down Missouri Street. I don't know if you know Missouri Street goes past Perinatal Hospital, and it's got these lovely little undulating hills like this. So we drove towards town and went up and down and up and down. We loved it. It was so much fun. We turned the truck around and we went back the other way 10 times faster. Up and down and up. And down and up and down and oh shit, there's a wall. Bang! I went straight into the Polish embassy and the car was completely squished. Luckily I had a bull bar on. I put my knees to the dashboard, I cracked my ribs and I split my lip open and my tooth went into the steering wheel and that's where it stayed. It was always there for like months afterwards. But I looked around at Gary and all I could see was a big sort of bulge in the windscreen where his head had popped into the windscreen, and there was no sign of Gary. So I thought, oh my God, Gary, are you okay? And his head popped up from the side of the car like this, and as he popped up, he had blood going pss, 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 out of his head like that. I said, Gary, are you okay? He said, no, I've lost my watch. He's busy looking for his watch outside the car. So anyway, I got up, and I ran, and the security guard had opened the gates, and it was the Polish embassy, you know, so the gate was open, and I ran in, and as I was about to knock on the door opened, and it was the Polish ambassador, and he said to me, oh, you believe the bill of the Lord? And I was like, and I said to him, and my lip was completely open like this, and the blood was all pouring down my face, and he was actually saying, ambulance, ambulance, and I was also saying, ambulance, ambulance. It turns out the ambulance station was across the road, but I didn't know that. So I ran back to the car, and as I got there, another guy had arrived and stopped to help us. And I went to his car and I said, will you give us a lift to the hospital? He said, yeah, sure, but don't bleed in my car. So I said, no, I won't. Me not that, blood all over me. So then Gary came to the back of the car, and his head was still going like this. So off we go to the Avenues clinic, and they actually had to wire Gary's jaw up just before his wedding. He had his jaw wired up, and it was a great diet, mind you. He lost about 20 kgs, and he was very grateful for that. But for me, I had to get my lips sewn up, you know. So they put me onto the old examining bed or whatever it is, and 2 male nurses held me down while the doctor tried to inject my cut. And instead of injecting the cut, the anesthetic actually went to the back of my throat. So I was being held down by these 2 nurses, and I was trying to get up because all the anesthetic was in my throat, you know. So I was trying to tell them, dudes, you haven't got the anesthetic in the lip. I was trying to get up like that. I couldn't sit up. And then my throat all went numb, so I couldn't talk. So he put the 16 stitches in my lip with no anesthetic, which was 3 or 4 beers more would have been better. But anyway, so the next day we go off to the theatre. I still had 2 shows to do with 16 stitches in my lip, and then they stuck this plaster over my lip, and I had to act the whole show. I didn't know. wasn't the best show on the planet, but you know, you got through it. That's what I like about it. I think I'm getting a nod here. Yeah, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, I've done about 40 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to go and refill your glasses. And yeah, we'll see you in about 15 or 20 minutes time. Thank you very much indeed. Did you all get a dog? I have my dogs here, so there we go. Cheers to your good health, everybody. Here's to Quack Quack. So I was telling you before the interval there that, oh, you've noticed I've become more Zimbabwean. The longer I stay here, the more Zimbabwean I get. This shirt used to fit me, but I washed it once or twice and they shrink a lot. Or else it's just me having more lunches. Anyway, look, this is a story about your friend here, Alan Hageman. He and I were commissioned to make a documentary about 30 years ago, I suppose. It was a documentary on the ecology of Lake Kariba, and we were very excited about it. It was the Open University had provided the funding, and we went off to Kariba expecting to find great hospitality. But in fact, they were going to provide us with a houseboat, and the houseboat was KA003, which in fact was used in Operation Noah. So it wasn't a houseboat at all. It was a piece of tin with a bit of tin at the end and a bit of tin at the front. And the one bit of tin was the galley, the kitchen, and the place where they did the driving. And at the other end, it was basically the toilet and the bedroom. So the first day, I went to go and use the loo, and it was like a sweat box. It was just metal and hot as hell, and it had a tiny little porthole in it. But the worst thing about it, it had a 1950s toilet. And those toilets were basically those pull flush things that you sort of pull it and it sucks, push it and pushes it out in theory. So I did the business, and then I grabbed this thing and I went, and nothing happened. The thing just sat there, all the bog rolled in and just sat there, didn't go anyway. So I tried again. Eventually it went, and it went out, and then because I had my momentum going, I pulled it back again, and it all came up again. And then it all went down again, and it all came up again, and it all went down again, and it ended up like soup. So it was really disgusting, you know. So I thought, I'm never going to do that again. So the next day I thought, okay, what I'm going to do this time is I grabbed my spade, and I grabbed my bog roll, and I walked off the houseboat, and I went, well, KA003. I went over the hill and onto the other side, and I dug myself a nice little hole. And then I parked off, and I did my business there, you know, sitting there nice and quietly, looking around. There's no elephants, there's no lions coming to bite me. This is nice, sitting there. And then suddenly, I heard a diesel engine. And within a second, the next thing you know, there was a whole bunch of tourists coming over the hill in one of those Land Rovers with a game guide. It was the back of Fothergill Island. And I didn't really realize that, that was the spot I had chosen. So these Chinese come over and they've all got their binoculars and the cameras going and check me out. And all I could do was squat and wave. Like this. So they went home with a picture of Steve having a turd in a Kariba. Terrible. And I don't know what it is, but I seem to have a theme about having a poo on those jobs, because I've been to like 45, 50 countries or something like that. And everywhere you go, they've got a different way of doing the business. Like, for example, in Central America, places like Venezuela and Guatemala and that sort of place, they have a tiny little pipe. So you don't do your business completely in the loo. You poo in the loo, but all the toilet paper goes into a bucket next to you. It's the most revolting thing on earth. But we went off to Morocco, and we went to Casablanca, and then Marrakesh, and then over the Atlas Mountains and into the desert. And the desert, to begin with, is beautiful. It's full of sand dunes, and it's lovely. But then you go further into the desert, and it becomes really hard and flat, like rock, with lots of little stones, and you can see as far as the horizon in any direction. So when it comes to camping, there's no way to go and do your poo. So you have to wait till night time. So you get your little torch like this, and you stick it on. and you get your spade and your bog roll, and you walk away from camp. But now, just know that everybody in camp can see you. As if you were to go 8 miles, they'll still see your torch. So, you've been there. Somebody shouted me, no? So anyway, I go off and I dig my little hole in the desert. And now, it's actually quite cold in the desert at night, and it's quite windy. So I didn't want anyone to see what I was doing, so when I got settled, I turned my torch off, like that. Is it off? Don't know? No, that's on. So I turned my torch off, and I'm sitting there, doing my business. This should be the toilet, I suppose. And I do my business, and then I look for the bog roll, and it's gone. So I was thinking, oh my God, what do I do now? So I turned my torch back on, and of course everybody in the camp is now checking me out. Look, what is Steve up to? And there I am walking around the desert like this with my pants down, looking for my bog roll, you know? The whole the neighborhood looking at me, what's going on here? Steve looking for his bog roll. It's very appalling, isn't it? But that's what we have to put up with, you know, when you come to Kwekwe. Toilets aren't that great at all. I've had a couple of experiences on the way in here. It's very, very interesting. Now, I'm talking cut now. Let me get rid of my torch here. Okay, so, there we go. Now, so I went to South Africa. I keep on coming out here. I've been out to Africa. I think this is my 4th trip this year. I keep on going to South Africa, Kenya, and all these places. And I went out to see my brother a few years ago, and he took me off to the Vaal River. And the Vaal River is a very Afrikaans-speaking place, and lovely people and everything, but they take their rugby very, very seriously. You know what I mean? And there was a big match going on, not dissimilar to what you have going on here tonight. The bar, it was absolutely packed, full of people. And they were watching the satellite images of, I think it was England playing South Africa rugby, yeah. And I went out to the loo, and I noticed that they had some sort of air bricks, so you know those breeze blocks, going up to the roof, right next to the gents' toilet. And on the roof, I saw the satellite dish, and I just couldn't resist. I just went up the breeze blocks, and I put my hand between the dish and the receiver on the satellite dish, and just stopped the rugby match. And you could hear the crowd in the bar going, come on, woo! When I turned off the stream. So I would quickly went back inside the bar and joined them, and the rugby match carries on. So I did this about 4 times. And my brother turns to me and says, are you messing around with the pictures here? So I said, yeah, I am. He says, they'll kill you. They'll kill you. Don't do that again. Well, of course I did it. Every time I went up outside of the bar, I just stuck my hand in front of the satellite dish. Stopped them watching their rugby match. They do get aggro. I don't know if I didn't get caught, to be fair. I have to tell you a little bit about my health. I mean, I've noticed there's a few older folk in the audience. And as you get older, you do get these health conditions creeping in. And for me, I've got a faulty sphincter. You know that little muscle that opens and closes? Well, did you know that your body's got more than one of them? It's not just your pupil, but there's one up here as well. It's your esophagus. And that's what gives me trouble, is this esophagus has apparently never really worked. So I have to go and get a scope, right? Every 2 years, they're going to stick a camera down my throat. So in Belfast, I go off to get this procedure done, and the one time I went to go and do it, they give you a bit of a sedative in the back of your throat, and sometimes they give you a little thing that makes you kind of drowsy and a bit out of it, which is, it's okay. They don't give you that injection until they get the camera in, right? So I go there, and the surgeon says to me, look, we've got a lot of students here. Would you mind if they came and watched the procedure? And like an idiot, I said, yeah, fine. So in come about 7 females, nurses or doctors, I have no idea what they are. And I'm lying on the couch, you know, and you lie on your left-hand side like this. I've got my wire cord. You lie on the couch like this, and they stick this thing down your throat, right? So obviously they spray a little bit of thing and then they stick it in. And I'm giving it one of these. They give you a plastic ring to bite on so that you don't bite the camera. So even though you're biting, the camera is still being shoved down your throat. And then when the camera's down, they start filling you up with gas so that the camera can move around freely, right? So this thing's going down my throat. And then the gas starts going, so then I look over to these poor nurses, they're looking at me, and they're just like absolutely shocked at the whole procedure. They say, oh my God, this poor oak. And for sure, I was fighting for about 4 days after that. It's really not a nice procedure, I can tell you that. It's called a gastroscope. Yeah, not so nice. And now these days we have our own little cameras that we use for everything. You know, like right now I'm shooting on tiny little cameras. The big cameras that we use are still there, but you can do so much more with cameras. I took a drone up the other day just to take a couple of shots of Kwekwe and the Kwekwe Club and what have you. Because in the old days we used to use microlights or helicopters. You know, helicopters if you had the budget for it, but microlights if you didn't. And we used to hire a guy in a lorry that had microlights, and he'd take us off to anywhere, and we'd film around the airport even. There was a place called Mbezi Lodges near the Harare airport, and we were doing a little corporate film for them, and I got into the microlight from Charles Prince, and off we went around to Harare airport, and we're filming and filming and filming, and suddenly the plane starts going, and the engine cut out. And the guy was swearing like man on the headset, saying to me, "Geez, can you just find somewhere to land somewhere, you know?" I said, "Over there, there's a field. Don't land in the field over there." He said, "No, that's a plowed field. You can't land there." And I looked to my left, and it was like a copy and rocks and trees. And I said, "With no ways we're going to go there." So he said, "Okay, we're going into the plowed field." And sure, we went down. No engine. Into the plowed field, landed. I cut my foot open, and the prop was bent, and the wheel on the thing was bent, and it's just a petrol engine, right? So the guy jumps off, he says, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, not too bad." He says, "Right, okay," and he goes to the engine, and he pulls off the filter, and he goes, and he just blows a whole lot of crap out of the filter, and he sticks it back on, and he says, "Now, here we are, we're back in business." Yeah. It's a two-stroke engine, you know, so it out, let's go again, it starts nicely. So there's still a plowed field, like how are you going to take off in a plowed field? It's going to be like this, you know? But there'd been a tractor that had gone up and down the plowed field a couple of times, so he chose that little path where the tractor went. And we sort of got the aeroplane into position, and off we went. And as he gets to the tree, he stops. He says, "No, we're never going to make it. So we've got to go beyond the other tree. And what I'll do is I'll stick the wing up like this." So I thought, okay, this is going to be fun. So that's what we did. We went all the way back, and he's got the plane ready, and off we go. And we get past the first tree. The wing goes like this. We get to the second tree, and off we go. And then the engine stalls. We just go like this, straight towards the ground, and suddenly he's gets the engine going again. And off we went. It's much easier to use a drone nowadays, I'm telling you. Another time we were in the Pumbi, in the Pumbi Falls, and we were filming the Pumbi Falls, and the plane, the microlight was going around the basin like this and up onto the falls, you know. So every time we went around, the valley was warm, it lifted us up, and it was no problem. And then suddenly the valley cooled, and as we came towards the mountain, we got sucked down instead of going up. So we went straight towards the cliff face. So the pilot just dropped the left wing like this, and we went, and we just kept on. I saw the cliff going past like this on this side, and the villages and the open valley going past on this side, and I was like completely clueless as what to do, and so was the pilot. Eventually he pulled out, and we went off to the valley. Then he went up really, really, really high and landed, and he said, "That's it, I'm not flying anymore." But his mate was quite happy. He was like, oh, no, I'll fly. So like an idiot, I got into the other aircraft and off we went again, you know, flying around the valley again. But this time we just flew up and down the top, and then we flew up and down the bottom. So safe enough, you know. Anyone here got a microlight? Thank God, that's all I can say. I have a drone. If we want to play games tomorrow, we could try it. Okay, folks, now my phone is locked and I can't even see what I'm doing anymore. There we go. I'll definitely have another beer. So now, here's another little story about my friend Alan Hageman. As I mentioned before, we did did I mention the Tiger tournament? No. So we did the Tiger tournament. Alan wasn't really doing the Tiger tournament, to be fair. He was filming the Tiger tournament. So we did the Tiger tournament. The first time we did it, those oaks thought we were there to pinch their fishing spots. So they didn't, they said to us, we'll be at Zebra Island or whatever, at Antelope, come and film us there. So we go there in the morning and there's no oaks. They're not there at all. So they were somewhere else. So we had to say to them, look, what's the story? Why do you keep changing the fishing spots? And they were like, no, because we reckon you owners are going to come and fish our spots. And we had to say to them, no, we're not really interested. We want to film you catching a bloody fish, you idiot. So the second year we did it, it was, I came up with the idea of sort of sticking the cameraman on the boat with the oaks, right? So poor old Alan there gets stuck on, I can't remember who the owners were, onto this big boat, and the owner had a really big motor, and his fishing spot was right on the other side of the lake. So you know what those boats are like, the big motor, in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's checking out what's going on. They got the cold beers and the fishing rods, and it's all cool. In the morning, and then the chick flies off the flare, and all the boats go, and they just put the throttle straight down, and off they go. Now Alan wasn't really expecting this. He was sitting in the passenger seat now and said, no, you can't sit, you have to stand. So he starts standing and he's holding onto the boat in the middle and he's like, and it's like, whoa, can't we stop like that? 40 minutes of going across the lake like that. So he gets to the other side of the lake and the oats get. Let me start with the fishing rod straight away. So as soon as they park off, Alan's sitting there like knackered, completely knackered, and the own casts in the rod, the other own casts in the rod. They've got their 4 rods out, and the own skis, I need a poo. So he takes off all his kits and he jumps overboard and holds onto the motor and does a poo in the water. Only Zimbabweans, you know what I mean? Then he jumps out the boat, back into the boat, and he grabs his fishing rod, because by now he's got a bite, and he's busy reeling in, and poor Alan's sitting there with his oats in the neck. You know, just only in Zimbabwe. No wonder why they don't believe me in Ireland, you know what I mean? Here's to Zimbabwe, it's lovely to be here. Cheers. Right. I don't know what else I can tell you. Oh, the same Tiger tournament. I came back in about 2004, and they asked me to be the master, the way master, was the way master, which is basically the owner that reads out all the rules and stuff. So I tried to make a bit of humor of that. And you know that these shoes, I don't know what it is about these shoes, but I get cracked heels. So I thought it would be funny if on the prize gift, I told them that I would have, because of my cracked heels, I was a bit gay. So, like all those roadie fishermen, and I was busy acting like a gay oak on the stage. They didn't laugh once. Similar to you, actually. So, the same Tiger tournament. I said to the oaks, when I do the prize giving, I want your funny stories. You tell me your funny stories. So the one funny story I got, I don't think I'll ever forget, because It was a story about 10 oaks that went on a houseboat. And of course, night one is the big, heavy session where everyone's doping. But the one oak had his father with him. And they had these little bedrooms on the houseboat where you could have 2 oaks in one room. So the mate and the other mate's father had to share a room. But the mate's father had false teeth. So he went to bed fairly sensibly, like at 11 o'clock or something. He's had a few dops, he doesn't want to play with the youngsters anymore. He goes to bed, he gets his glass of water, puts some salt in it, and takes his teeth out and sticks it next to the bed like that, and goes to DOS. And then one of the youngsters comes to his room, to have a DOS in the other bed. And like 2 hours later, jumps into bed, he's having a DOS, and he says, I'm very thirsty. So he cramps the glass, thinking it's water, and starts to down it, and it's full of salt and this oak's teeth. So what does he do? He goes, and he spits it out and he chucks it out the boat. Teeth and all, salt water out the boat. The next morning, the old man wakes up at like 5:30 or and he says, and my teeth. Oh my God, where my teeth? They're gone. So he's walking around the boat looking for his teeth, thinking, I don't know, I put them next to the bed, Anyway, everyone wakes up and he tells the story about the teeth. I've lost my teeth. So the guy who runs the boat, the captain of the boat, says, no, don't worry, I'll get them out. And he starts fishing for them. He gets his hook and his sinker and he ties on like about 4 hooks and he starts, where did you chuck it? Over there. And he starts fishing. So the others all go fishing and they get more beer and the orange drinking. He had a bit of sucked an orange for breakfast or whatever, Anyway, they come back to the boat and the oak is still fishing, trying to find this oak. He's casting and bringing his line in and casting. It's eventually, he brings up the rod and there on the rod are the false teeth. You see, Zimbabwe story, no one's going to believe that. Absolutely. What bait? I don't know if it was a tracer. So now, as I told you, I live in Northern Ireland now, and when we first moved there, it was very, very hard to understand what they were saying. It's a completely different accent, very hard to understand. We took our daughter to go and register with the doctor, and we went in, and she was 4 at the time, and the doctor said, look, I'm going to have to do some tests on her, so, hopefully you can bear with us. So I said, no, that's no problem. So she got out these little plastic animals, and she stuck them on her desk, and she got my daughter Tyler facing the animals, and she said to Tyler, I'm going to walk around the table, and I'm going to ask you to point at all the animals. So we all were happy days, this is going to be easy. So she says, point to the pig. So my daughter Tyler, she pointed to the pig. The woman, the doctor says, can you point to the dog? Tyler points to the dog. And then she said, can you point to the kai? The kai. And then the doctor turned to us and said, I think your daughter's got a problem with the hearing. I said, no, I don't think so. I think if you said cow. So then she says, point to the kai. And Tyler was like, okay, yeah, there's that cow. They are a different breed, I'm telling you, but I'm getting used to the Northern Irish, I have to tell you. We went off to the Lyric Theatre, and it was a celebration of culture, which included Africa. And are there any Prince Edward Oaks in the house? No? No. Only Kwekwe Oaks. Churchill Oaks, no? Anyway, we go off to the theatre, and they introduce this act from Zimbabwe, a cultural act from Zimbabwe. And this oak comes on and he's got those, those shakers on his feet and everything. And he comes on and he goes like this. Yeah. And then he screams out, boomalaka, boomalaka, ba, 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 chickalaka, chickalaka, cha, 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 boomalaka, chickalaka, who are we? And that's just gone. That's a Churchill walk, right? So after the show, I went up to the oak and I said to him, so are you Churchill? He said, no, I'm Prince Edward. I said, what about the Shona? Didn't you learn Shona? He said, no, this is what I do. Now that he has learned Irish and tap dancing. He's learned Irish dancing, and he's my Shona from Harare. He does a better job than I do, and he's also got a much nicer honey than I have. And my brother-in-law is a guy called Justin. He has the same job as me. He's into television and he works behind the camera and is an editor and so on. And he used to be in the South African Navy as part of the AV guys. And he was on a ship and he was sent into Europe somewhere, and they were anchored in a very fancy harbour, and there was a big cocktail party going on with VIPs and admirals and so on, ministers and so on. And he was asked to go and film this. So he had to put on his number one able seaman suit and go up to the cocktail party, which he did. And he was just didn't have any food, so he was starving, but too nervous to just help himself. So he snuggled up to the table with the snacks, and he thought, I'll just grab a few peanuts. And he took a whole handful of peanuts, all sort of sniveled over to the other side of the room, and then he shoved all the peanuts in his gob. They weren't peanuts at all. They were olive pips. So then he had to sort of very surreptitiously spit out everyone's chewed olive pips, stick them back in the bowl. Yeah, and just he's funny. Okay. And I have a mate called Gary. We used to share a mess in Aurora. There were three of us, and we used to have a security guard called Felix. And I thought he was pronouncing his name wrong, so we used to call him Felix. And then one day he said to me, my name is not Felix, it's Felix. And he showed me his stupa, and there it was, P-H-A-L-I-X, Felix. So Felix, he used to come to the window at about 1 in the morning, he'd knock on the window, and he'd say, Bus, they are here. So you'd wake up and you'd jump outside and you'd go and say, what do you mean they're here? He said, no, we had intruders in the garden, they've gone now. Okay, fine. So one night Gary is he's having a doss there, and sure enough, Felix bangs on the window. It's Bus, they're here. So Gary jumps up in his underpants and he goes out into the yard, and the two of them are hiding behind the bush. He's going, okay, well, where are they, Felix? They've gone. But while you are here, please, can I have a $20? Yeah, it never changes, yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, listen, I've got a few more stories there. I'm gonna tell you probably my last one. This is a story about my father. He was an accountant, and he had a wicked sense of humor. He was good at it, But he died in about 93, and the four brothers were tasked with arranging his funeral. So we went off to Dubs Morgan, and the owner was trying to sell us, an oak funeral and an oak coffin and a pine coffin, and this one's a very fancy one with silk lining and all these fancy coffins. So we chose a coffin, and then we went into his office, and the oak says to me, you know what, you need to decide how you're going to bury your old man. Are you going to embalm him, or are you going to put him in a suit, or what? So they looked at the boots and we thought, well, he was an accountant, so it would be appropriate if we dress him in his finest suit, So the undertaker said, no, that's a good idea. Tomorrow you bring in the suit, and maybe bring in a shirt and a tie and a belt, but don't worry about the shoes. So we said, okay. So we went home, and the old man and the old lady used to have a wardrobe that was combined, the two of them. You'd open up all the doors and the two of them had the same wardrobe. And on the right-hand side, the old man had all his suits and jackets and stuff. So we selected what we thought was the best suit for him, a nice sort of blue pinstripe suit and a nice pale blue shirt and a lacquer tie and the belt. But on the left-hand side, we noticed the old lady had a few things that were maybe quite appropriate to take along, for a bit of humor. So one of them was a big grass sombrero hat, Mexican hat. And then we thought, let's grab that and we stick it in. And then you remember Kenny Cantor? He had those big glasses, those dark glasses. So we said, we'll stick that in with it as well. And then there was some powder there that my mom used to powder her face with. So we got the powder out and a bit of lipstick, and we stuck that in the bag as well. And then we went off to the funeral parlor the next day. And we said to the owner, how's it? And gave him the suit. And he said, very nice suit. And it's a very nice shirt. It's a lovely tie. gave him the belt, put the belt on. Oh, that's all lovely. And then we pulled out the hat. And we said, you know, my dad used to go to the cricket matches with this hat on. So if you wouldn't mind including the hat, it's very special to him. So the uncle was like, I'm not sure how you're going to fit that in the coffin, but okay. So he takes the hat. And then we pulled out the Kenny Clanter glasses and we had to do the glasses. And he was like, no, I don't think that's appropriate, you know, like, it's not going to be that great. No, it's not deadpan faces. No, the old man would have loved this, man. This is just his thing, you know. So he took the glasses, and then we pulled out the powder puff, but we couldn't contain ourselves for the makeup and the lipstick, you know. So we all started laughing away. Next thing, the door opens, and it's the other director at the funeral parlor. And he says, he opens the door and he says, I just came to check on you because I've never heard laughing in this room. And it's a bit like tonight.